Travis, would you come up? Travis is going to speak to us today, and just a real brief intro. When I came to Connection Church, which was only a year ago, pretty much, I found out quickly that the Oast family is a family that if you want to know Connection Church, then you need to know the Oast family. And everybody can agree to it, I'm sure. And I guess what I appreciate is that, we've come close just in the last 2 months. It seems like just kind of hanging out and stuff. And I have a lot to learn from Travis. I really, really do. And I'm sure we all do this morning. And so I'm just really looking forward to our relationship, man. I'm really looking forward to what God is going to do with you. I didn't know if you guys know, but Travis is on the pastoral search committee as well for our church, bringing in the young blood, making sure that we're going to keep it loud and obnoxious. But man, I'm just really blessed by you. And I just know that the Lord has something great for you, man, so appreciate you.
Good morning. So I'm not very much of a public speaker, especially to an audience this big, so you're going to have to bear with me. In fact, when you first asked me, my initial response was not only no, but heck no. And then I heard immediately resounding Paris' voice saying, hey, push your limits, step out of your comfort zone. And now, as I'm standing here, I hear Paris again. The very first time Paris asked me to speak at the mix, I botched it terribly. I dropped the ball, I was all over the place. It was ugly. When I got all done, I was standing there talking to Paris, and I was like, man, you've been doing this for like 30 years. You got any advice? He's like, well, first off, what happened? I was like, well, I got going, and I missed some bullet points, and I tried to circle back and grab them again, and it didn't flow together. He's like, what do you got? How do you fix that? How do you go back and catch him? He's like, well, simple. I just don't skip my bullet points. So if you catch me reading from this, it's because I'm taking that advice. For those of you that didn't hear, I guess my name is Travis Oast. My wife, Bo, and my son, my daughter's in the other room. We've attended Connection Church since the spring of 2014. This is our home, and you guys are our family. It's kind of crazy that this whole theme of the morning is kind of been centered around family. First, Grant was talking about having family dinners and breaking bread as we remember the sacrifice made for us. And then we just had an amazing baby dedication. Welcome to the family. It's kind of weird that Troy trusted me enough to stand up here and speak. He didn't even proofread.
I got time for that.
I might say something crazy, he doesn't know. And I got the microphone. I feel like if he would have known me, maybe the springtime of 2013, he wouldn't have been so trusting. He asked me to kind of speak on where my heart's at in this church and what this church means to me. And I feel like to do that proper justice, I need to kind of give you a little backstory. Growing up, I attended church on a regular basis. At age 5, my parents were divorced, and I lived in Michigan. And my mom and stepdad didn't go to church, but they always made sure I was able to grab the church bus on Sunday mornings. And they always paid for the camps and all the activities that I wanted to do. Just as long as they didn't have to take me, they were all about it. I attended regularly at Bethany Assembly of God in Adrian, Michigan, all the way up through 5th grade. In 5th grade, it got over, and I came to Colorado for the summer, and when I got back to Michigan, my stepdad was gone, and all my siblings had moved out, and I was just kind of expected to deal with that. I was never really given an explanation. It was a little rough. So just like that, it was just my mom and I. I went to 2 different schools for 6th grade, because I managed to get myself kicked out of both of them. We moved several times, and I went to 2 different schools in 7th grade, and I got kicked out of both of those as well. After that, my mom said that she'd had enough and decided that she couldn't control me, so she sent me back here to Colorado to live with my dad. My first year back here was 8th grade at Fruita Middle School, and I managed to get kicked out of that place too. It was about this time that I started attending youth group. It was Vineyard, now it's Canyon View Vineyard, and Paul Watson, for those of you that know him, was my youth pastor all the way through high school. He spent an amazing amount of time just pouring into me and loving me, and just setting an example of what it was to have a servant's heart, and to truly just want to live with God and have a relationship walking alongside Him. I was one of the leaders in the youth group. I went to all the camps and events and activities. I was all in on Sundays and during the week when I was in youth group. And I'm happy to say that 2003, I graduated after spending 4 complete years at one school at Fruita Monument. If you looked at my life from that angle, I was doing all the things that a church kid was supposed to do. I was there every single Sunday. I was a leader in the youth group. I was somebody that you could call and get prayer from. But then on the flip side of that, if you met me in school, if you saw me at the parties on Friday and Saturday night in the desert, if you had a conversation with me on the football field or in the wrestling gym, you would never know that. You might go out and smoke pot with me at lunch and never have any idea that I was going to youth group that night. I was going to lead kids. It was a weird time in my life. If you looked at it from that view, you would get a completely different view. Basically, all 4 years I was living a double life. Almost immediately from the time I moved back to Colorado until I graduated, I was in a constant fight with my mother and my stepmom and my dad. And less than a week after I walked down the aisle with my diploma in hand, I moved out. Swore I was never coming back. Luckily, I haven't had to yet. The next 5 years I spent in the construction industry working just enough to buy beer and maybe some weed or whatever I could get my hands on. I never went to church. I just worked and partied with friends. Throughout this time, I never made a conscious decision to turn my back on God, or I never decided I didn't believe in Him anymore. He was always kind of somewhere in the back of my mind, I guess. Sometimes I didn't pray. Just nothing consistent, not very often. In 2008, the construction industry just came to a screeching halt in Missouri. And just like that, I was out of work. Spent several months looking, couldn't find anything, to the point where I was trying to work at McDonald's and they kept telling me I was overqualified. Like, I just couldn't get a job. My wife's girlfriend at the time, we'd been living together for about a year. Her stepdad offered me a job as a field service technician trainee in Banff, Texas. So we packed up and moved to Texas. When we moved, I quit smoking pot but started drinking even more. I'm confident that I was never an alcoholic, but I was definitely on the path that was heading that direction. In 2010, the opportunity came up to transfer with the company that I was working with back here in Colorado. By that time, I'd made most of the fences with my dad and we were on speaking terms again. So my wife and I packed up and moved to Craig, Colorado. We moved there January 1st, 2011. And then June 19th, 2011, our son Kinson was born to Craig. At this point, Bo and I had been married for 2 years. We barely made it through the first year. We were living in complete isolation in Craig. We had no friends, and our closest family was 3 hours away, down here in the valley. That poor, amazing lady, my wife. I was working an average of 80, 90 hours a week, and she was stuck at home alone with a newborn, with zero support system. For that and many other reasons, she's absolutely one of, if not the strongest people I've ever met in my life. 6 months or so later, in January 2012, I switched jobs and I slowed down. I dropped down to about 60 hours a week, which was pretty significant at the time. It's nice to be home a little more. It was about that time that my dad started bugging me to go to this weekend. Please, 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 come on, son, it's been amazing. I can't wait for you to go, you're going to love it. No, don't want no part of it. That's a Trace Diaz weekend. While Bo and I had slowed down a lot on drinking and most of our party days were behind us, we still smoked cigarettes like they were going out of style and cussed like sailors. I still hadn't been to church since high school, and Bo had never really attended church, at least not consistently anywhere. After telling my dad no several times, I finally reluctantly agreed to go, mostly just to get him shut up and quit asking. In the fall of 2012, I went to Trace Diaz. That weekend was amazing. Completely changed my life. I met a man named Harris Wallace. He was the head spiritual director for the weekend. That means he was kind of like the head camp pastor. He had questions, spiritual questions, religious questions, whatever he wanted to talk about. We spent a lot of time in conversation that weekend. I heard him speak several times and I got to know him a little bit. Through the course of the weekend, I got convicted by the Holy Spirit, big time. If you've ever attended one of those weekends, generally you listen to several talks by pastors and various topics, and there's a bunch of lay people like myself who don't really have anything, any credentials behind them. They just stand up and speak their life and their testimony and try to teach you some good points. I've been back several times since, so I know that the topic was never directly addressed, and my recollection wasn't even mentioned. But the Holy Spirit laid on my heart that I was completely failing my family. Completely failing my family. According to the world standards, I was doing everything right. I had a good job with benefits. My wife was able to stay home and raise our kid. I came home every night. We were getting along really well. Our marriage was doing decent, at least for us at the time. Once we got the third leg on our stool, it's been way better. But at the time, I thought I was doing really good. That weekend, I just had it laid on my heart that I was failing them. I wasn't setting a godly standard in my house. I wasn't leading them to church on Sundays. I wasn't the spiritual head of our household. There was no God in our house at all. Sunday after I got back, we started going to a small church in Craig, Journey Lake First Baptist. We spent the next 6 months there pretty much every Sunday. We got to know the pastor a little bit, congregation some. It was a good start. In December of that year, we got stuck in a snowstorm trying to get home from my dad's house on Christmas Eve. And it took us like 6 hours to get from here to Craig. We're like, that's it, that's enough, no more, we're moving to Grand Junction. In March, we closed on a house here in Grand Junction. And the very first place that I wanted to visit was Connection Church, because I remember that conversation that I had with Paris and the amazing talks that he gave and just the life that which he lived and he just poured out love and joy everywhere he went. And I was like, man, I got to go see what that guy does at his church. So that Sunday in March of 2014, we walked into Connection Church on 4th and Grand. We met our new family. Jay Johnson greeted us at the front door, and I could be wrong, but I believe Donna Coon was the very next person that we met. And she took us over and showed us where to drop off our son. And I would have swore it was Miss Amy, because as a general rule, she's the one that does this. But I think I've been corrected, and it was Miss Sue that had Kenson for the first time. But if you've ever met any one of those people back there, they're absolute godsend angels. For the last 4 years, they've done nothing but love on both of my kids at this point. I have a baby girl, Charlie, and my son, Kenson. Every Sunday, just pour love into them and show them, set them on the right path, give them a good foundation. I love both of those ladies so stinking much. As soon as I walked in, Paris spotted me and recognized me immediately and gave me a big hug. So did Robert Getty. He was actually my first Connection Church brother. I met him at Trace Diaz. And he came and grabbed me immediately. Since then, we've been able to grow our relationship and become pretty good friends. Spent a lot of time in prayer together. We've spent the last 4 years being loved on and welcomed into this family, where both my wife and I have amazing opportunities to serve in the youth group. Several various ministries, but I think the big one's been the youth group, or at least that's been the most consistent one, maybe aside from Evanston Park. That first year we were here, somehow, I'm not even sure how it happened, but Paris wrote my wife into going to summer camp, where she actually met Tyler, Keegan, and a lot of the guys that are actually helping lead the youth group now. That fall, we started up the mix and asked us to help. And as far as I know, Cody, Chrisman, and us are the only ones still from that original team that are there, or at least consistently. But I guess as I am standing here right now, he asked me to push my boundaries because I didn't feel comfortable doing that. I took his advice and I stepped in, and it's been a blessing ever since. I've had the opportunity to have nieces and nephews come through the mix. It's been an amazing way to get to know them and be able to be a part of their lives. After we left the last building over on Grand, we hosted the mix in our living room right up until the very first Sunday we were able to have it here. That was both a blessing and a pain in the butt at the same time. An amazing amount of work went into that. Bo did most of it as usual. It was awesome getting to see a group of about 15 kids grow together and become rock solid and get deep into the Word and just desire a relationship with the Lord. But I'd be lying to you if I told you that was the only reason we did it. Our selfish reasoning was that my son and my daughter were right there in the middle of it. That was awesome. Christina did a series on the armor of God, and my almost 7, later this month, 7-year-old boy, he was about 5 at the time, was able to go into school and teach that same message to kindergartners. It's awesome. We got to witness kids coming together and learning and playing and singing. That aside, I can absolutely say that no one was happier or sadder when we finally got to this building than my wife and I. Mostly her. She always got to work. I still travel a lot, but every Sunday that I can make it, I try to be part of the mix. I also serve in breakfast at the park. Rob Meckley and I are the co-leads. Mostly him, he's the boss, I just do what he says. We actually met Rob and Rosemary through a couple's Bible study that we did at the other building that Paris had set up. Since then, we've become good friends. That man right there, that's blood, that's my brother. We've even vacationed together. We spent a lot of time in prayer for each other, with each other, just shooting the bull and good conversation. That same Bible study, I met Ron and Tracy Harris. I think I saw them sitting somewhere. There we go. If you see this man right here, he's enormous. About 6 months ago or so, I had the pleasure of baptizing him. And it was pretty funny because as big as he is, I got him down just fine. But it was the Holy Spirit's resurrection power that got him knocked up. If I ever needed anything, I know that I could call any of them. And there's several people in this that just family, doing life. I could go on all day about dozens of people in this church that I consider family, and I can tell you several stories. Like Josh Umberger and myself, he's in gym shorts helping me put no chains on my truck because there's a lady stuck and we're trying to pull her out of the ditch, and we got stuck in the process, and it was a whole thing. But as Paris used to say, it's just doing life together. Yesterday I was looking through my calendar, and November 30th of last year we had our first pastoral search committee meeting. Had to be early November or late October when Troy asked me if I was interested in being part of that committee. That was a tough decision for me. This church is family to me, and I love each and every one in here. I was and still am nervous about screwing it up. It's a big responsibility. I hate to say it, but I think that no matter who we choose, there's going to be fallout. It's going to be change. Some people are going to leave the church. Some people will stay. New people will show up. It sucks that you can't please everybody, but hopefully we keep close. That's a huge responsibility. I loved Paris very much, and he taught me so much about responsibility and stepping out of your comfort zone. Again, one of the main reasons I was able to say yes. It was tough to be asked to be one of the people that looks for the man who's supposed to fill his shoes. Since then, I've definitely figured out that there's no replacing a man like him, but we still have to find somebody to lead our church. It's kind of scary because what if I don't like the guy that gets picked? Not like in the sense of competition where I'm like, oh, you got to pick the guy that I liked. But more so is he's already been picked out. We just have to open our ears and find who it is. But after that, what if I don't like him? This is my family. I was here first. I don't want to have to leave. It really puts me in a state of awe. It's been amazing that just such a diverse group. There's 7 of us. I think I'm possibly the youngest. Jeremy might be right in there with me. It's an amazingly diverse group, and it's awesome when you think about just the sense of unity and oneness in which we've been able to address every situation or every issue that we've come up to. I've learned that in the long run, just give it to God, He's got it. That though it may look rough now, in the future I'll be able to look back and say, oh, I see what you did there. That was clever. Smart man. That's one of the things I struggle with, is just giving all my decisions up to God each and every day. And I think that being part of this and just being able to step back and say that He absolutely does have this. He already has the person picked out. We just have to be willing to listen when He shows us who it is. It's been an amazing learning experience. Sometimes I feel like I still gotta do it all, but I generally know that God's got this, and that's one of the reasons I think Troy was okay with trusting me to speak today and asking me to be on that committee, is he knows that when I say I'll think about it and pray about it, that I'll do just that. I'll perfectly consider it. When I look back on my life, just reminds me of how difficult it is, how emotionally draining it is to try to do 2 people at once. If you're in that situation, man, you just gotta step back. To know good and then choose to do wrong consistently, it just kills you inside. It tears you up. And I promise you, I screw up daily. It's really, really, really not unheard of for me to be pushing on a wrench or slip and busting my knuckles and then have a few choice words to scream and yell and hop around with afterwards and then ask forgiveness immediately after. That's absolutely not out of my character still. But I think the difference is now that I try to do right. And those times that I do fail, I've got an amazing God who loves me and has an abundant amount of grace for me. I know He loved me before I decided to love Him back. I know He's always loved me. The amount of love that He had for me back then, that He has for me now, or He has for me in the future, will have for me in the future, that'll never change. The only thing that's been able to change in my life is my ability to receive that love and that grace and actually take it from from a knowledge-based understanding of grace, yeah, I know what it is, into a practical application of grace and receiving that grace that He's always offered me. It was crazy once we sat down and had our first meeting. We had to actually quantify what a pastor is and what it looks like and come up with a job description. When you sit down and think of all the different things that a pastor does, the very least of it is standing right here on Sunday mornings and giving a sermon, although that's a big part, but that's one of the smallest responsibilities that he has. He has to oversee all the various ministries, the outreaches, make the day-to-day decisions, facilitate the praise and worship, fielding calls and appointments for counsel, prayer, and conflict from the congregation. He has to try to get to know and build relationships with almost 200 people and be accountable to 200 people day in and day out. That's an amazing responsibility. Plus, he's got a personal life. He's going to be a husband, a father, maybe a coach. It's a lot of different hats to wear. It was crazy to try and quantify exactly what a pastor does, but it was really cool to see such a diverse group of people come together and pretty well agree on everything. There hasn't been any bickering or arguing, and I just can't believe how such a varying group of people can be so closely aligned. It absolutely must be a God thing. I'm very confident He's already got the perfect fit out there. We just have to be willing to listen when He tells us who it is. It's been a big commitment since last November. We've been meeting regularly every 2 weeks-ish. And that alone is hard with all the different work schedules and life. But somehow it generally works out. On May 31st, so just last week, we closed or stopped taking applications officially. And I'm sure there might be one or two more that roll in, but officially we closed the application process. And I don't know the exact number. Jeremy, do you know how many is still in here? Or Mark, anybody? No? I'm going to guess it's been about 100 applications that we've had. So in between our meetings, Jeremy's been manning the email, and as the applicants are rolling in, he's getting them out to everybody, and then we spend our time reading all their applications, their resumes, trying to find their videos and stuff on YouTube and their church websites, and just trying to learn as much as we can about these people. It's been a huge time-consuming job. And then we sit down at the table and discuss, and you like this guy, and this was awesome about him, but maybe not so much about this guy. His personality doesn't seem to fit our church, and I may possibly be speaking at a turn here because it hasn't been officially discussed, but hopefully, God willing, July-ish, we should be interviewing the short list, hopefully. Maybe. It's been a daunting task to add all that time into my already packed schedule, but I'm glad I was asked to do it. I have this tattoo on my arm right here. I got it I think the week before we moved to Colorado, actually. We were up here visiting and I interviewed for my transfer. I went and got a tattoo that says patience. I think that God has had to remind me to be patient in this process because I, like many of you, am ready to just start the new chapter in my life. I'm ready to see what God's got in store for us. And I just got to remember that He's got this. Let's close in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank You for an amazing church family. I thank You that You brought me here. I thank You that I've been able to make such solid relationships and be poured into by so many people, and in turn given the opportunity to pour into so many others. I pray that everybody in this room can get a chance to just feel the family feeling or sense of love and community that I feel every time I walk in this building, Heavenly Father. I know that I came here probably because He's sitting here, but real for me was because I was seeking out what I had met in Paris. But the reason I stayed here is the family that I've met in the process, and I just thank You for that blessing that they've been in my life. I pray as we continue to search for our next leader that You would just keep us patient, help us to keep our ears open and our minds open to pick the person that you've already chosen for this body of believers. I just pray a blessing over everybody that's in this room. I just pray that you be with them as they go through their weeks and bring them back safely. In your holy name, amen.